You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast, the hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Well, hi, folks. Chris Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com, the ChrisVossShow.com. Welcome to the big show, my family and friends. We are live. Did any of you know the show is also live? I mean, I know a lot of you subscribe and listen to the podcast, but it usually goes out live unless the publishers don't want it to go live and they want it saved till later. But it goes live on 5 different Facebook groups, the LinkedIn things over there, YouTube and Twitter. So you ain't got a chance to check those out. I'm just doing a way to set up the plugs. Once again, I get tired of calling the plugs out, and I think you probably get tired of hearing them. But in the meantime, go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, go to youtube.com/Chris Voss, and LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss as well. I should get an award for that segue because that was new. Anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in. We're going to be talking about amazing workplaces and the future of workplaces. You know, we've had a lot of authors that have come on, talked about remote work. People, are now working from home more than ever. I've been working from home since 2004, running companies in other states and stuff that I just go visit every now and then. I know what this is like. And so many more employees are going and doing it. We're going to be talking about Workplace 4.0. And that's going to be a pretty interesting discussion we're going to have today about everything that goes on. We have Mo Hamzian. He is the CEO of a company called VEL. We're going to be talking to him about what that means and how it works. He's an entrepreneur, a mentor, accomplished speaker, and CEO of his own company. He has made it his personal mission to solve the inefficiencies of today's workplace with his latest venture, VEL. He is a graduate of Regent's University, London, and earned his master's degree from the London Business School's Sloan Master's Program. He has an established leadership record with over 20 years of experience and has successfully executed projects totaling over $150 million. Is that all? $150 million? That's not chump change, people. That's a lot of money. Whether it's building or executing deals, Mo excels at delivering returns for investors and stakeholders and believes a clear vision combined with performance yields powerful results. Welcome to the show, Mo. How are you?
I'm great, Chris. Thanks so much for having me. What a great introduction. I feel like I need a drum beat or something, but I love being here with you. I love your show.
Thank you very much. And it's wonderful to have you as well. Give us a .coms wherever you want people to find out more about you on the interwebs and the sky.
Yeah, we are myvel.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn /Mo Hamzian. Come and see us there, or at VEL Work Cafe on Instagram. But I'm sure you put it into your show notes at the end of the show.
There you go. And there'll be a link on the show you can click on. So, Mo, give us a little bit about your origin story. We got a little bit in the bio, but from your mouth to our ears, tell us a little bit about you and what got you down this road of becoming an entrepreneur.
Yeah, thanks very much. I think I love entrepreneurship, first of all. I think as a modality and an industry, it's really grown up over the last 20, 30 years. Entrepreneurship has become so much more structured, lots more frameworks, whether you're an incubator, an educator, an accelerator, or seeing other startups, podcasts around your show. So the market is really, really transparent. And entrepreneurship is all about finding a monumental problem, either it's in scale monumental or in its volume monumental, and being able to the solution for it and mapping that solution on that problem and expecting the customer to pay for it at a certain value. So I am someone who enjoys finding what's not working really well and being aggrieved by it, getting really passionate about it, finding a why behind it, and then being maybe silly enough or stupid enough to think you can fix it, and being dogmatic about it to say, I can't sleep until I fix it. And then 3 years later, you've built a business and wondering how amazing is this. So I think entrepreneurship is just one of those experiences that is hugely fulfilling, and I love it. But a lot of entrepreneurship for me is about one foot in front of the other, marginal gain, and getting to your destination. But I love it. For me, I just to give you a little bit of background, I'm an Englishman. You can tell from the accent. Don't hold it against me. The two things that happens in the US with Englishmen, two things always happen. One, everyone thinks you're smarter than you are. In my case, it's true. and then the second worst part, Chris, is everyone thinks you're richer than you are, which in my case is not true. Yeah. So somehow that's what happens. But I came to the US 5-6 years ago, and I tell you something, Chris, the largest, biggest, most fruitful, developed single market in the world is the US. And if you're right now operating in the US, stand for a second, pat yourself on the back, and feel extremely lucky to be an entrepreneur in this large single market, because truly, 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 anything is possible here. And I've experienced it for myself because I've lived in multiple continents, multiple countries, and this country is a real true beacon. And I don't mean that just in an ideological way. I'm in a transactional and commercial way. So happy to be here, and over to you.
There you go. Well, you come from London. The other great thing we have over here is the sun. It comes out every now and then.
It does get dark at about 3:00 in the afternoon in London in February, and you're wondering, when is this going to end? Popping vitamin D tablets.
There you go. I mean, it's a beautiful city, and it's a beautiful country, and everything else. But it does get a little bit overcast and dark there sometimes. So unless you move to Seattle, then you have a whole nother. You pretty much replicate London for when they have Sundays up there. So you started a lot of different companies. I see here going through your LinkedIn history, and a lot of them are very entrepreneur and investor based. Do you want to tease out any of them or touch on them and on how they led you up to this latest venture?
Yeah, I'm happy to. I think it's really interesting. Everything I've done in the past until now has one common denominator that it had lacked. Was enormously successful. There was a lot of problems. We found really, really good solutions. I was involved in it either as a CEO or as an investor, and they were largely around real estate, food and beverage, and delivering scalable real estate solutions to market, or growing an F&B business, multiple markets. Largely, I found them through time and valuable, but hugely opportunistic. The one thing I can tell you that entrepreneurship really needs, and I lacked personally, and that's one of the reasons I went back to business school in my mid-30s, was to find that mission, that vision, that common thread, was that ability to bring the periscope up and see what's my roadmap going to look like. And this company that I created and we've built together over the last 3 years with my team and co-founder and CFO, Jack, is something that's hugely mission-led. We have an enormous why, and we exist because of that. And we become really passionate about it over the years. And something that's happened in the market, structural shifts that happen. One of the things investors ask of you all the time is, in a good deck, you should have it, is this answer of why now? Why should we care now? Why is this relevant now? Why do you have a differentiation now? And for us, as difficult as the pandemic may have been for millions and millions of people around the world, there are going to be graduates of the pandemic, similar to that, graduate startups of the pandemic, similar to graduate startups of the 08, 09, 010 crash, where Airbnb, Uber, these startups were born out of it. So I guess entrepreneurship for me right now is leading a mission-led company, grow as fast as possible and solve these problems as fast as possible in multiple markets.
There you go. You bring up some great points, not only there, but a little bit earlier. Right now, tech's going through a lot of layoffs. We're kind of in this whole 2008-ish era of layoffs and restructuring and maybe a recession, and no one really knows. But usually a lot of these tech layoffs and things like that usually bring about the new genre of whatever the new future is going to be, whatever it's going to be. And a lot of people are going to be working at home and doing their thing and doing the remote stuff. You talked about earlier, like I said, what the beautiful part of being an entrepreneur is that, like what you said, you can take in something needs to be fixed, something bugs you. You can go, hey, I know a way to make this better. This is stupid the way this works. Somebody didn't think this out. I can make this better. And then once you make it better, you're like, hey, I bet everybody else is suffering from the same sort of dilemma, and you bring it to market, and away you go. So, what caused you to want to start VEL? And tell us the roadmap of how you got here and kind of the vision of what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'll answer that question philosophically for a second before I dive into like the genesis of it. For a very long time, sociologically, the needle has been moving in the workplace, whereby because of just general society, human behavior, how we interact with different spaces has been changing, and technology has been disrupting that. I mean, the internet has totally proliferated lots of these kind of structural workings. Like, for instance, our value system and interaction with home is changing over time. The pandemic has shown our mandate and engagement with an office is completely different to that what it was 20, 30 years ago, maybe for our parents, right? And therefore, new spaces are becoming much more relevant, much more sociologically relevant. When I was a boy, the library was a place of great sanctified space for me. I took huge amounts of refuge in the library. I found enormous amounts of reading and space in the library for me just to press pause. That doesn't exist today for a lot of people. So we live in a really overly stimulated economy. So as soon as you leave home and you're no longer going to the office and you want to do something interesting, the only other viable environment for you is a F&B environment. So that's either a restaurant. Well, check value of a restaurant is pretty high. The friction of getting in is real. You also have to eat. You may not always be hungry. So in America, that place for a lot of Americans is a coffee shop, is a classic coffee shop where people go and socialize as that dependable third space. So then we connected. We said, look, okay, coffee shops are really relevant, and it's a very decentralized market. There are in fact 65,000 coffee shops in America, of which 50% of them belong to Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts. So about 30,000 coffee shops that are decentralized. So we said, coffee shops are real. The economy has changed on lots of freelancers and remote. In fact, half of the US working population are either freelancing or remote working. That's the population of the UK, by the way. That's like 80 million people. It's remarkable.
Wow.
So they're not going to home and they're not going to the office because they don't have an office. They don't want to commute to the office. They're going to the coffee shop to work sporadically or regularly or quite a lot. So we then said, okay, so coffee shops are relevant. The workplace has changed, but the coffee shop, from my point of view, and I've been working in coffee shops all my life, coffee shops have never been designed to hold space for you. Coffee shops are designed to sell good beans, good menu, their ideology of a croissant or a pastry or a frozen drink, and ask you to leave, thank you very much, as soon as possible, so we can sell another drink.
And usually the chairs are pretty hard too. They have the hard chairs without the cushions, so that that's a lot of restaurants have that nowadays. They have the hard chairs because they want to get you out of there.
They do, and you can't blame them because their revenue stack is designed to sell you drink and not sell you space. So we said, what are the best? And I love Starbucks bits, by the way. What Starbucks has done in the marketplace to be able to be. Some people say it's 60% good enough. Some people say it's 90% good enough. But Starbucks has been able to do, let's just call it 75% good enough, 17,000 times consistently. And that brand promise is extremely hard to replicate. So what they've done is a major testament to the leadership team, to the product and the consumer base. But Starbucks, 80% of its revenue is takeaway. And these are anecdotal, rudimentary numbers. And therefore, they don't necessarily want you to sit. So we say to ourselves, how can we create an environment where you take the best of Starbucks, you take the best of WeWork and co-working, you marry it together, create a love child, and introduce a huge tech stack, infrastructure, hardware, behavioral sciences into it to create the GoPro version of a coffee shop. And we did exactly that. And it's the market is responding well to it.
This is extraordinary. I was looking at it on your website, myvel.com, and you guys are basically, like you said, you're merging Starbucks with the WeWork experience, and even your menu of drinks and stuff is kind of designed to help focus people, help people keep moving. I've used Starbucks. In fact, I tried to use it to write my first book because so many people have like families at home, kids running around, in my case, dogs running around. And so, sometimes, being in their space, you're like, I'll try and, I'll try and write something or work on a new book and on the computer. And then you get a pop up, it's like, hey, or, your dog comes in or a kid runs in, I suppose, if you have family, and, it's, hey, got to go do this. There's lots of interruptions. And the nice thing is with a coffee shop, you can go out, you kind of feel like you're amongst other people. You can get something to eat and kind of keep busy, but you can also kind of focus on what you need to do, whether it's a project or a client thing or, whatever you're doing. And you can kind of work on stuff without having those home interruptions. And so many people are doing that from now. They're working from home, whether it's remotely. But sometimes it's a better place to have business meetings. I mean, you certainly can't have people come to your house if you want to have a business meeting.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a nice place to meet up with people and have a formal meeting. And of course, break bread with people, because breaking bread with people really is almost a better rapport builder than, going to somebody's office.
I agree. And let me prove a point. I'm going to go off script and let you know what it feels like to work at VEL. I'm actually at VEL. We're in Miami right now. We're doing an expo at Emerge Americas. We have a prototype of our product, dropship prototype of our product. And I am in a $5 an hour, $30,000 pod.
Wow.
This thing is built from the ground up. I have my Zoom lighting here. I have my Wi-Fi. Each unit gives its own Wi-Fi. But let me open the door, and suddenly once I go out, you can see how annoying and how disruptive it is. And now you can't hear me. I'm outside. So if I go back into my space, you can suddenly see I'm in a coffee shop, live recording a show with Chris Voss for $5 an hour with a cup of coffee, real time.
There you go. Wow. That's amazing, the difference in the sound between the two. And that's you're solving one of the issues that most people have in a coffee shop is, it can get a little too noisy, or that one guy can start talking a little too loud and you're just like, that guy's really starting to bug me now.
Exactly. And one thing we wanted to create was, we wanted to give you reservation dependability, which means if you are a nomad, digital native, remote work freelancer, and you want to have a reservation dependability outside of your home, good luck, unless you're willing to spend $50, $60, $100 an hour. So we said, how can we give you a micro space that next Wednesday morning at 10 o'clock, let's say you're pitching an investor, and all the money we've raised has been over Zoom, by the way. So you're pitching an investor at 10 o'clock. You actually don't want to spend $100. You just want to spend $5 to $10, but you've reserved the space. So we've built a tech stack that Chris Voss can reserve a pod at 10 o'clock next Wednesday. Chris can walk in his pod. The Wi-Fi will already pick you up because hopefully Chris is a regular. The drink would have been made because we will know you've arrived. A robot Iris delivers the drink for you. And that's what we've created here. And so far, Chris has spent $10. So those are the things we're building. And when you think about it, it's so simple. None of it is rocking. We're not reinventing plastic. It's just replication and innovation at its best.
There you go. I love this idea too, because if you're going to have an investor or business meeting, like I said, there's nothing worse than, the noise gets really loud. They can't hear you. And so you guys basically have created these like little pods inside of the areas where people can have private space or comfortable space, and have their own space, I guess, when it comes down to it.
Exactly right. Ultimately, we said, look, what coffee shops are transactional. They're anonymous. You don't have to be a subscriber to be a coffee shop. You don't have to stand on one foot, touch nose to work with a coffee shop. Anyone can come in and transact with us. So you can buy a drink and sit in a free open seat, no strings attached, no problem. But if you want an additional layer of privacy, you can go into a pod. If you want a mid-level layer of privacy, and I can show you some people, they're working in those Nest seats right now. So you can go into a Nest seat. So we have a diverse value stack that can be anything from $5 to $15 an hour, depending on what you are. But the ultimate thing it gives us in this remote setting, and maybe we can talk about that a little bit, and it gave to me, for me, when I worked out of coffee shops when I was younger, I felt guilty and I felt shameful. I felt not good enough. I felt insecure. I said to myself, you know what, Google was huge back then, Twitter was huge, and they still are. I said to myself, if I was as successful as my successful cousin who worked at Google, I wouldn't be working out of a coffee shop. But because I'm a freelancer or I'm a digital native, I'm working at a coffee shop, my self-esteem was affected because of it. And I think WeWork did that for a general population. What WeWork did for a lot of people was say, or co-working industrialists did for a lot of people, say, you know what, you don't need a fancy expensive office with 1 year's worth of lease. Come to WeWork, come to industrialists, and you can stand proud knowing that you're working there. So we said we want to create that similar culture, that similar ethos in a coffee shop setting, to say, you know what, you actually want the pay-as-you-go flexibility of a coffee shop, the transactionalness of a coffee shop, because you may just want to use us 3 times a month, no strings attached. You can come in and spend 10 times every time you come, but feel amazing after you've done it, like a very good product. And that's the quest for us, to make it much more meritocratic.
There you go. And I like this setup that you're doing, because you're doing something different than just throwing up, copies of Starbucks. Here's some of the benefits that come from this. Cortisone lighting, ergonomic furniture, optimized temperature. Ergonomic furniture is important. Like I said, I go into a lot of restaurants now. They have those hard wood chairs. There's, when I used to try and go into Starbucks, I'd always want to sit in those nice leather chairs if they had them. And, there's always somebody camping that. So having ergonomic furniture and something that's comfortable is going to make a difference. Optimized temperature, aerospace soundproofing, flow inducing music. That's interesting. New tropic coffee, brain food, fast, secure Wi-Fi. That's, of course, the most important. Imagination-inducing scents. That's kind of interesting. And robot baristas. Do you want to talk about any of those? The robot baristas are kind of cool.
I love to talk about all of them, in actual fact, because somewhere along the line, human beings thought having a chair and a desk and an expensive laptop is optimal workplace, but that's not true. It's not true. If you are the fastest man on earth, and they take away your really good shoes and put you in sandals and ask you to run the 100 meters, you're not going to be as cool. You might even get blisters and break your toe. So it is the same thing for us. We said to ourselves, what are the things that activate flow? What are the things that get you there faster? So temperature, for instance, we know colder temperature makes you much more analytical. Warmer temperature makes you creative. So we can create cold zones and warm zones depending on the modality of work you're doing. If you're doing like mathematics and computer design, get in the cold space. If you're being much more creative and writing and content writing, get in the warm space. That's just a simple example. Yeah. And another thing is acoustic value and privacy. One thing you don't have as soon as you leave your home is neuro safety, psychological safety. You're overly stimulated. And majority of people are not extroverted. Majority of people are introverted. I am an introvert, believe it or not, which means I recharge by myself, which means if I leave home, the safety of mummy, wherever it is, I go into the real world, I'm going to get bombarded with stimulation. So when I come to a coffee shop, I get into this pod, I can just relax. I don't have to be so agitated. So that's another thing. And safety and lighting and acoustic value are required for creativity. Scent is another one. Scent is one of the low-hanging fruit. Hotel use scent extremely well to be able to elongate customer stickiness by a factor of 20%. So you can create scent to be able to drive part of the brain in different ways. We use Palo Santo, for instance. It activates like imagination and that mysterious side of you. And believe it or not, even in Miami, in an expo, we're pumping that scent out and we're drawing people in. So those are important. And the other thing we decided to do is, like, for good design, the reason the brand exists, Chris, is to help everyone achieve their goal. I mean, it's a lofty statement, but we stand by it. Then we say we want to eliminate distractions and enhance focus. So our keyword is focus, and our tagline is stay focused. And the way we do that is, how do you stay focused? How do you eliminate distractions? You have to layer out friction. One of those frictions is standing in the queue for 5 to 7 minutes. You don't do that at VEL. You actually order on the app, go and sit down, the robot delivers it. Another friction is at VEL, you can have a tab open. So you can just, as if you were at a bar, you can just open up a tab and pay on the way out. That's another layer of friction.
Wow.
So we've compressed the onboarding and offboarding of a public space as much as possible. And those are some of the things we're doing, and we're really product centric about it.
That's really brilliant. I like the idea. I've been in that flow where I'm writing something, or, I'm working on an email or presentation or a sales pitch or response. And you're like, oh God, I got to get up and get me another coffee, and then you got to go stand in line. You kind of get a whole interruption, to what you're doing. And it kind of throws you off. And, sometimes your coffee's coming, you don't. So I like the concept of having a robot barista just bring you what you want. And there's an app involvement here too, right? People can do a lot of this interaction off the app, correct?
That's it, exactly right. So we have a tech stack, which means you can book space, you can order drinks ahead of time, and we have two types of users, just like good old technology platforms. Majority of users are going to be everyone, free users, casual users. There's no subscription. You can come and transact with us. But if you're a subscriber, you're a power user. Let's say you go to coffee shops 3 times a week or more. You can become a subscriber to VEL, which is very, very affordable, $10 a month. For that, you get some enhanced benefits and enriched benefits, both in terms of pricing benefits, but also you get your own Wi-Fi pipe, which is 500 megabytes up, 500 megabytes down for $10 a month. It's incredible. So we have gamers who come and sit at VEL all day long in a pod, drinking coffee and playing professional games. We have recorded. It's incredible. I love it. It's.
I have some friends that I need to send there because I play with them online, and I'm always. The joke is, what are you using, that McDonald's coffee shop Wi-Fi? What's going on with your Wi-Fi there, buddy? And they're like, yeah, my parents need to buy some faster Wi-Fi. It's like, maybe you could give your parents $40 or something so they get that faster Wi-Fi. So that's kind of the joke. You're using that Starbucks Wi-Fi down the block. And that's funny. Gamers are using that for the thing. So you guys have already started opening shops. Tell us where you're open now and kind of what the roadmap is for spreading the offices around, the coffee shops around the nation.
Yeah, so we're open in Savannah, and Savannah is growing really, really well. We're 6 months into Savannah. I love Savannah as a marketplace. It's net 40 people move to Savannah every day. Wow. Savannah has SCAD. It's a real has huge symbolic capital outside of Georgia as well. So then we're building in Charlotte. We're building in Charleston. We're building in Nashville. We just did a deal with Amtrak in Chicago Union Station in the Great Hall. And we're looking at 3 or 4 airports I can't announce quite yet. And we're looking at several hotels, some of them in Miami and other markets like Austin and Boston and New York. So, classic business school says GBF, get big fast. And for us, it's not necessarily a GBF. For us, is to solve problems at scale as fast as we can, because we get emails all day long. I get LinkedIn messages all day long. When are you coming to this city? When are you coming to that city? When are you coming near me? And I want to deliver on that. We want to deliver on that. And it's interesting because we're now also in 4 different verticals, right? So we're in residential, hotel, train, airport, and each one has its own nuanced problem to solve. The dwell time in an airport is different to a train station. Airports have luggage, residential doesn't. The airport customer is different to a hotel customer, for instance. So there are lots of things for us to think about, but we're one of those companies that's growing.
There you go. In fact, we've got a ring in from the live feed. Mary K. Evans, thanks for the question, Mary. Are you going to do California? Is her question.
We are. We love to come there. We're actually discussing some stuff in San Francisco right now, in some of the transport environments in San Francisco. We believe we're hugely relevant for airports. So California is great for us. We're also exhibiting this 20 by 20 exhibition we have in Nevada and Las Vegas in a couple of weeks. So I can share the details with you at ICSC in 20th, 22nd, 24th of May. So if anyone is in the real estate or commercial real estate business or economic development, or even just really fascinated by real estate and the products that are coming out of that, they should go to that exhibition. They can come and see us. We're doing it in partnership with Cushman & Wakefield. It's a big deal for VEL and for Cushman & Wakefield.
There you go. She even said it would be huge in Orange County. Orange County is like a great place to do business. Lots of money there, and people are responding very good. So you're selling us. You're selling the crowd. The audience loves it so far. I think it's a great idea because, like I said, I've tried to do coffee shops. They're a great place to meet, and sometimes it's hard. It's noisy. It's not comfortable. Sometimes you can't get the best chair. You've got the person who's, there's always that one person sometimes in a crowded space who's talking about something that's so insane. That's usually what happens to me. And you're just like, I want to go choke that person. Not really, but in my head. And I'm like, and you're just like, I can't think about what I need to think about because you're so loud talking about, I don't know, something that's so ignoramus that I just want to go, Arr! So there's that. But I love the idea. I love the concept. Office Space 4.0, with all the layoffs going on. I mean, the VCs are gearing up for this. They're getting ready because they know this is a new 2008 or .com boom, where basically all these people got fired off of Twitter and Microsoft and Google and stuff. I think there's a new round of firing going on at Facebook. These are the people who are going to come out with the new inventions and the new innovations, and probably the new Facebook and Twitters when it really comes down to it. So these people are going to be working from home, doing deals, meeting up, putting stuff together. If I recall rightly, Twitter was put together in a coffee shop. If I recall rightly, Ev, Biz, and Jack hashed it out in a coffee shop. So if I recall rightly, coffee shop or restaurant. And look how well that turned out. No, I'm just kidding. It actually did for them. They're billionaires. I mean, I think Elon Musk has a whole different take on it, though. We'll see how that thing turns out. What haven't we touched on or covered about VEL that is important to tease out there?
I think we've covered a lot of it, but I do want to touch on this idea of the schematics of the workplace changing in remote. I know a lot of people have been talking about, this kind of great resignation. I mean, for us and for VEL, we see it as like a great transition. And that's a huge time of dynamism and opportunity. Let me give you an example. For instance, we are a remote company, even though we are brick and mortar. The corporate structure of the company is remote. And we celebrate that and overcompensate with it in terms of cultural values, touch points, building information centralization, so everyone is commercially intimate. But we put out job posts, like for instance, hiring a chief of staff at the moment, and we just put out a job post, and 1,800 candidates apply. And
wow.
So it's remarkable how people have now this new degree of autonomy to be able to say, look, this no longer works for me. I now need to move to this city, and I still want to work for that startup in the other city. And startups and companies like us are embracing it, saying, absolutely, you can live in Illinois and work for our company who's headquartered in the cloud, and I live in Florida. So absolutely, that's working. And I think that's something to celebrate. And that transition and that change is something that we don't know how the dust is going to settle. There's still a lot of ums and ahs and question marks over a lot of things. I mean, there aren't that many successful case studies of $1 billion unicorn or gorilla that was built remote, stayed remote, unless you're WordPress or Shopify or a heavy tech company. So to some extent, I think flexibility and hybrid is the way forward. And I think common sense will prevail, and the truth is always somewhere in the middle.
There you go. Well, I think you guys are discovering and opening new territory and actually improving on, when it really comes down to it, you guys are improving and innovating on models that have already been successful. WeWork and Starbucks and everything, and what people are trying to do. And you guys are just merging the two together and making it so, there's an environment that's healthy, safe, and you're going to feel like you want to be productive in that environment. And, then you've got robot baristas. So there's that as well. You don't have that snarky barista who can't spell your name all the time and who's too busy on their phone or something. I'm just teasing Starbucks. And it looks like the menu's fairly inexpensive too, as well, especially if you're a subscriber. Is that true?
It is. Number one, we can't tip at VEL. So there's no tipping culture here. I'm an Englishman. I found that enormous amount of friction having to tip. I get stressed when I'm not sure how much I have to touch. And so therefore we really like, and I'm not saying I think tipping is really valuable in the restaurant business and in lots of businesses. It just wasn't relevant in our business. That's all I'm saying. And so we therefore have a baseline salary. So starting salary at the barista level is $20 an hour, which is way above
I'm quitting
market.
this job.
There you go.
I get $5 an hour here. Or is it a day? I think it's a day.
Wow, it might be a minute.
They just throw me a bag of chips and a Coke, some change, whatever's left in the drawer.
So
$20 an hour is pretty good these days.
It is. It's really good, which means we can. And also, if you're paying $20 an hour, and there's no tip culture, you can give baristas, economic dependability. Like there's no seasonal variety in their earning power. So then we have PTO for our baristas, and health and well-being programs, etc. So it's a new way of looking at food and beverage, and we're not the only one doing it. Lots of other companies, there's coolers thinking about that. But we're a people first kind of company because we believe we're trying to sell an experience, and ultimately our humans, our people in our company sell that experience. So we have to start off by looking after them first. And I am one of them. So I look after, the company looks after me, the company looks after everyone else, and drive that forward. We build a culture around it. And we build a halo around ourselves, which says, to some extent, we're the chosen, we're going to change the world. And that's really important in a remote setting, to galvanize everyone around a common denominator.
There you go. Well, that's an extraordinary vision, and you can give people some inspiration there and deliver that. And that's kind of what you're trying to do. You're trying to help send some inspiration to the next generation of entrepreneurs as they give them a place to operate. I've got another question coming in. Have you given any thought to putting it in hospitals and large assisted living facilities? There's a whole population there that are computer savvy and need access. This question I have come in.
I love that question. What an intelligent thing to have pointed out. Yeah,
we have intelligence audience here.
Yeah, no, for sure it is. Definitely, for sure, we would love to do that. Having said that, early stage startups, and by I mean early stage, I mean before, like, as far as before Series B. So within the first 4 or 5 years of a startup, you need to be very precise about your beachhead, and penetrate that fast and hard. That doesn't mean that value proposition can't sit in a hospital really, really well. But in the early days, we're going to have to be very sincere about what markets we're penetrating and doubling and tripling down on those to keep ourselves a little bit more focused. But I appreciate the question, and we'll definitely consider that down the line.
Definitely. I mean, you guys expand a lot of verticals you can get into. But yeah, building the core out so that you can get that dominance and stuff. Georgia, did you guys pick Georgia because it's such a fast growing place? I mean, there's a lot of construction going on there. It's kind of crazy what's going on there. It's kind of the place to be, I think.
It is. It's got a net positive environment, definitely in Georgia. We were looking at multiple territories at the same time. I happen to live 2 hours south of location number one. So it was important from a early stage management point of view that was close to us. And Savannah is just one of those cities we found a very good spot, very good landlord, things lined up, and we selected Savannah. But we also have a one city growth strategy at the moment. So we don't want to do 2 in a city right now until we get to the dozens or double digits. So we want to grow multiple cities, multiple states. So we're now at the moment we're now in 5 cities, 5 states.
There you go. You just got some comments back on that. Keep up and doing what you're doing. So there you go. Lots of Southern California. I guess we have a big Southern California audience that wants you to come there. So are you guys what about investors? If someone's listening on the line, we have a big LinkedIn audience as well. Do you guys going to go to VCs anytime soon, or public? Or are you going to still work on proof of concept and then control things from there? How are you going to work? What's the plan that way?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've had 3 rounds of successful funding so far. We're one of those startups Starbucks. We want to be like Starbucks, but we're one of those startups that is growing really fast. So we always, as soon as the ink is dried, we're raising again. So we're in round number 4.
Wow.
We're actually starting a round on Start Engine. So you can go to startengine.com/offering/VEL, and you can see all about us there. So that's startengine.com/offering/VEL. If it's interesting for you, let us know what information you need. But I think startups that are growing fast have to be good at raising cash and good at raising funds. And I believe that fundraising keeps companies very sincere and help build better product. Because when you go to market, you get very, very tough stress tests and questions that you have to answer, you have to think about, and you have to incorporate. Therefore, you improve. And it's the same way. You're trying to get a mortgage for a house. If the bank says no, it means maybe the house is just not good enough, or you're overpaying. And it's the same way. The market keeps you very honest, and product development is also thrives in the environment.
There you go. Well, Mo, this has been pretty insightful. Anything more we need to cover as we go out?
No, I'm so happy to be here, Chris. Thanks for inviting me, and hopefully I've added some value to your audience.
I think you did, and definitely people will be subscribing. It seems to be a favorite among our audience, and I think what you guys are doing is brilliant. I mean, it's one of those concepts where you're like, why didn't I think of that? Like I've seen the stuff over the years that you're just like, yeah, you just take WeWork and Starbucks and merge the two and make it better. And why didn't I think of that? And so it's a great idea. And sometimes those are the most brilliant ideas. I mean, most of the great business ideas like Airbnb and other things came from basically the for sale or the help wanted areas of Craigslist. So, they weren't they were sitting there the whole time in people's face going, you really should try doing this because it works someplace. So there you go. I mean, eBay. I mean, I had the idea for eBay back in the day because we used to run these bulletin board auctions. And of course, somebody who started eBay saw the same thing and went, hey, we should just make this auction thing like a centralized unit that's better than bulletin boards. So there you go. So Mo, give us your .com so people can find you guys on the interwebs and get to know you better.
Yeah, sure. Our domain is myvel.com. You can find us there, find us about our product and how we see the world. And if not, find me on LinkedIn. I'm sure, Chris, you'll put in the show notes. I'd like to engage with you.
There you go. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show, Mo. We really appreciate it, and you giving us some insight and hopefully some inspiration to future entrepreneurs.
Thanks so much, Chris. All the best.
There you go. Thanks so much for tuning in. As always, go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, the big LinkedIn group. There's 130,000 people over there. LinkedIn newsletter is just huge. It grows every day. It's crazy. Go to youtube.com/Chris Voss for the show to your family, friends, and relatives. Thanks for the recent 5-star reviews over there. Give a 5-star review on iTunes when you get a chance. Thanks for tuning in. Be good to each other. Stay safe. And we'll see you guys next time. And that should have us out.